teaching on the very day I arrived. It was difficult. I couldn't speak without notes earlier, and usually I used to finish my notes and end the class. But gradually it improved. Then earlier I was very much on the defensive. That is, I felt challenged. But gradually that also tailed down. Colleagues, there were very senior people here when I joined. They were kind, but they tended to be a bit too patronizing. But it eased off. I established myself. Professor Shah, Professor Baviskar, Veena Das. Now,
There were no
tremendous
people who joined
flexibility.
along with you.
But the questions were much more specific earlier. They had to be from within the syllabus, they had to be from within the readings. Nowadays, that is not so rigorous. Not to be so tied down to the syllabus to allow more room for teachers. Staff meetings used to be dramatic, quarrels and shouting and screaming and Rutna and all this kind of thing. But it was usually on academic matters. But that also has changed. There is much of that even now, but it tends to get a bit too personal now. I can't.
Very nice.
The department has allowed me complete freedom and I have enjoyed it thoroughly. The teaching load is very light, but the opportunity to hobnob with students is something that I prize. Not all teachers are so forthcoming as I am, but all the teachers are always open to students. But students don't much like visiting teachers. Teachers have to be, I feel, more proactive. A few teachers were, not that no one was, only I was forthcoming. But Veena Das, Professor Oberoi, Professor Shah, Professor Bete used to stay pretty much in his room, but he used to have lot of visitors. Lot of students used to visit him. Teachers are much more busy with their own research these days, and administrative work also occupies some time. But I feel that teachers don't spend enough time in the department now. They spend time, but they only come when they are required. Part of it is Delhi distances. The distances are so large and people stay at such distances that coming every day and hanging around is not on. On the kind of sociology, I practice a philosophical anthropology, and it has been my wish to push this and to encourage students to take to it. I have not been very successful in pushing students towards it, but some success, and my sociology is that it's half common sense, half nonsense. Now, people don't agree with this, and of course, common sense is not so common, but a philosophical anthropology entails a more philosophical approach to take the everyday a little more seriously. Now, in current times, the everyday has become a theme of of sociological exercise. But the everyday, as it is treated in sociology, lacks any kind of deep analysis of the everyday. And that deep analysis is what makes for a philosophical anthropology. Yeah, quite a few, but not just in sociology. This fellow, history teacher in St. Stephen's, follows a philosophical anthropology.
Who was that?
Rahul, I think his name is. There are other teachers, there are some students. Nothing much hangs by the name. It's just that there should be depth of analysis and there should be an anthropological approach that is concerned with the history and development of human beings. Only one approach. And an excellent work stands out. Any work that contributes and heightens our understanding of the human predicament is to be welcomed, whether it occurs in any discipline. And the disciplines are not separate from each other insofar as their contribution to our understanding is concerned. There are disciplinary boundaries, and disciplines are recognizable as the disciplines they are. But anything which contributes to human understanding is welcome. We know nothing about nothing, and yet we are compelled to carry on as if we knew everything. To cast some light on it. Most of all, it should heighten the sense of mystery, but it should also contribute towards illuminating this mystery. Mystery is marked in all works which are profound. It is the sense of addressing mystery that makes for profundity, not to take things for granted, to question what is taken for granted, to enter deeper into what is taken for granted and to illuminate its sources. But just to talk about mystery, the subject of reflection, even in Western sociology, it has treated of the self differently, but it has treated of the self. And the self, its identity with God, is of course taboo in sociology because sociology is a science and science has a methodological atheism built into it. But apart from that, to address this mystery and to illuminate it is part of sociology, very much so. Many thinkers have treated of it. And any deep analysis of relations and interactions involves reflections on the self. New appointments are due. Much will depend on what the new entrants are like. The department has always permitted teachers to go their own way. It has had a certain character, holding it together, but this is gradually dissolving. What held it together earlier was the Cold War. The Cold War was the center of the reflections of sociology while the Cold War lasted. Both sides of it and the non sides of it. But that is gone now, and there is no binding theme that holds the sociology department together. Teachers have earlier also teachers used to go their own way, but because there was a Cold War, there was a certain centering. Now that centering is lost. So teachers have always been permitted to go their own way. They still go their own way, and much will depend on what the new entrants are. We have never functioned at full strength. The university has never filled up the posts completely. There have always been vacancies, and there are still a large number of vacancies, especially after the OBC intake, when a large number of new appointments. Not everyone went along with the Cold War orientation. I can mention Rama, who never went along with it. I can mention Deepak, who was only peripherally concerned with it. But there are always separate directions. But there was a binding core to the general thrust of the department, and that was in tune with the general atmosphere of the times. After postmodernism, everyone has gone pretty much their own way. A binding theme, insofar as it exists, is a certain suspicion of ethnology, which is respected as it used to be, and students are not encouraged to try their hand at it. All that is demanded is an ethnography. This is not sufficient. You have to contribute to understanding. You can't just describe. It goes deeper. But an ethnology, there are ethnologies which are not philosophical. I can think of Merton. Merton is not philosophical. Above all, to think. I think the process of research is mainly thinking. That at every step you have to think, and at every step you have to illuminate what you have arrived at through your thinking and how you have thought. And it is not sufficient to have a question or to have a theme or to have an ethnography. There has to be thought in it. And not only a research student, but an MA student, a BA student. Higher education is mainly a training in thinking. And if you can think, you can fend for yourself no matter where you go. If you haven't learned how to think, if you have learned only the discipline, you can only solve problems which have to do with the discipline, and that's it. This resistance to rote learning in education these days. This is part of the same approach. They think that rote learning blunts creativity. By creativity, they mean thinking, but it doesn't blunt creativity. Rote learning has its own advantages. Some things just have to be memorized, and memory is a great benefit. Most of what we know is through memory. suggest reading the best. I would suggest trying to write what you think as clearly as you can, as often as you can. I would recommend some acquaintance with philosophy and logic.